Hey everyone, it's Kaz here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be uploading a quick one on Wayfinder. This is an action MMORPG that has been out for almost 2 weeks now, and it has had a rough start to say the least. But the devs have luckily clutched up and have made this game pretty playable in the last week, so I've been able to get in with my busy schedule and play for about 12-ish hours or so. So I think I'm ready to give my initial impressions of the game. Once I get to late game eventually and grind everything out, see everything there is to see, then I'll make a final impressions video to really know if it was worth it and if you should play now or maybe you should come back in 6 months whenever the game comes out of early access. But for now, I just want to give my initial impressions on what I think and do I think it's worth hopping into right now. Alright, let's start off with the good. The combat. I do have to say the combat. I've not had a chance to use every single weapon type with different wayfinders or anything like that. I've only played Windgrave up to the point that I'm at now, and I've only used the Vanguard, which is a sword and shield, and the Typhoon, which is the great axe that you can buy from Arsenal, the vendor. But even in only using those two weapons, the combat feels very, very good. It's really what you expect from the weapon. When I'm using sword and shield, I feel like I have more mobility. I can move around, do whatever I need to do, get some quick hits in, dodge out. Whilst with the Typhoon, it definitely feels heavy and slow. But that's good because it's a giant weapon. I mean, you should be swinging around a giant weapon like it's a dagger, you know? So it's a giant weapon, it feels heavy, it feels slow, it feels heavy. It's very satisfying in my opinion. I have a great time with it. I especially love the animations of it, and that's what I want to say next, is that the animations are not flashy. They're not too flashy, and they're not dull, at least in my opinion. In my opinion, they're just right. They're not, Final Fantasy XIV, a million effects when you do something, Reaper, who your whole screen basically turns blue when you do any ability outside of Enshroud. Or, it's not just regular sword slash, it's not super dull, it's, right in between. It's very nice. The animations are very fluent as well. Like with the Typhoon, you can do a jump attack, a jump heavy, and it does like a front flip slam, and it looks really nice. It looks really nice. And like the sword and shield, you can do a jump slam with the shield, and it looks very nice. It acts the way it's supposed to. It looks nice. The damage is very nice. It's very much what you expect. With the heavy weapon, the great sword, well, I don't know about great swords, but at least with the great axe, you got a lot of break power. I will say that you got a lot of break power. When you hit that jump heavy, you slam shields, you absolutely decimate them. And with the sword and shield, I definitely have a lot more blocking capability whenever I'm, blocking. I have a lot more blocking capability. I feel tankier because it's giving you resilient stats and things like that. So the combat is definitely a plus for me. I enjoy it a lot. Next, I want to talk about the dungeons because I really enjoy the dungeons. I've done the Codex and the pits, all whipped to the bosses on them. So I've got to do some more story and I'll of course unlock the next ones, but so far the dungeons have been absolutely amazing, and the reason I haven't progressed faster is because I've been going back and actually redoing those dungeons because they feel great to replay due to the dungeons being either procedurally or just straight up randomly generated, one or the other. I don't remember off the top of my head, but every dungeon run is unique. Every dungeon run is very unique. It's either gonna be some straightforward path, or you might get a dungeon with a million different secret paths and 20,000 winding ways that you can go, and it's honestly very amazing. It was almost overwhelming at first because it was absolutely amazing. I remember I walked into this dungeon and I didn't leave the first room for like 20 minutes because that's just how much stuff was in there. I had to align these giant globes. I was finding like little secret doors on the left and right while I was just doing side quests, trying to level up my great axe at the time because I wanted to use that. So definitely a lot of replayability. It feels great. It doesn't feel tedious, at least for right now. In all the hours that I've played, it hasn't felt tedious. And I spent a lot of those hours replaying those dungeons with different imbuements, which, speaking on the imbuements, they make the dungeons even more unique. Using something like the Flora imbuement, for instance, where there's just poison all over the ground. You have to kill the flowers to get rid of the poison. That just makes the run a lot harder, makes it a lot more interesting in how you have to approach situations, because up until I used the Flora imbuement, I was kind of just used to running into a room, slamming down, tearing through all the enemies. But when I had poison all over the ground everywhere and I'm getting ticked for my entire health bar, anytime I do anything, I definitely have to rethink my whole strategy there. So the imbuements are definitely a great addition. They don't feel, painful. They're not terrible. They're actually very fun to play with, and I've enjoyed them. And I look forward to the point where I get to combine imbuements, because I know there comes a point where you can start doing dungeons with, multiple imbuements at one time, because right now I can only do one. But I look forward to that. The dungeons have been absolutely amazing so far, and honestly, they're not too crazy. They're not crazy hard. Well, I say that. That's because I'm like usually up level or a little bit higher, but they haven't been crazy hard. And I said they're not tedious. They feel great. The enemies, they're pretty nice. I will say it's nice little diversity of enemies in there and the things that they do. I'll find myself out of nowhere losing half my HP bar or something. But yeah, the dungeons have definitely been a plus for me as well. Now let us talk about the world. The overworld, that is. Not the dungeons, but just the overworld. Now, I've only played through the town that you start in, Skylight, in the Highlands. I know there's the Reaver Woods, which I've heard mixed opinions about the Reaver Woods, but I've not made it to the Reaver Woods yet, so I'm not going to cover that. And I want to make my own opinions whenever I get there, and I'll have that in the final review of this. But so far, I've been through Skylight, and I've been through the Highlands, or I'm in the Highlands, and I want to say that it's very nice. It's honestly very nice. Skylight is not too complicated. Your giant dungeon hub or dungeon portal is by itself in a wide open, nice and huge. You can't mistake it for anything else. You see it, and you can just go stand over there, run your dungeons back and forth, and everything is kind of right where you need it. You got the crafting table that's not too far away from that. It's a few feet away over by Lord Haler. So you can craft whatever imbuements or whatever that you need over there. And if you need to run to any of the vendors, they're not too far away either. You can just run deeper into Skylight, and they're not too many steps away, and they're all in one little area, so you don't have to run 20 miles to the east, 20 miles to the west, like in Destiny 2 when you go to the tower. Anyone who knows that, you want to talk to Hawthorne, you gotta run all the way into the other side of the tower, and then you want to talk to Zavala, you gotta run all the way back. All the vendors are in one spot, and that's very nice, very refreshing. Now, when it comes to the Highlands, it's very nice. It's very nice. Very beautiful, I will say. It looked very beautiful, it looked incredible, and it's a good time now to touch on this, but the art style of the game is very nice. I love it. I love it to death. It's not that crazy realistic art style, and it's not too cartoony. It's kind of right in the middle, and I think it will age well. It's gonna age pretty well. But the Highlands were absolutely beautiful, and it's not just beautiful, it's well designed in my opinion, as the world feels alive. There's enemies all over doing whatever, and their levels range, I will say that. The levels range, because I found myself, just cutting through some enemies and out of nowhere losing half my HP bar to some high level enemies. Yeah, you gotta kind of watch yourself there. But other than that, there's some nice open world events that go on, kind of like Fates in Final Fantasy XIV, for anyone who knows that. So nice little open world events where you have to destroy the crystal that's on the ground, which is spawning enemies, and then once you destroy the crystal, it's like a big boss fight at the end, which is pretty nice. You normally get some nice loot, get some cool echoes there. And getting around the world honestly isn't bad either, because there's these little zip lines here and there. Of course, you got your bonfires. I forget the exact name of the little fast travel lights, but you have those sprinkled all over as well, and it's very nice. The dungeons itself, there's some games where the dungeons are kind of just stuck in the world in random places and it feels weird. But in this game, in the Highlands at least, the dungeons are placed in really nice spots that make a lot of sense, and I feel like they placed the dungeons and kind of built the environment around them, and it works really well. As for exploration in the Highlands, the exploration itself is also very nice, as I was just, running through the world, I believe yesterday or the day before, whenever I was last on. I was just running through the world, and next thing you know, I find myself in this cave. I was walking on the beach, and I just found myself in a cave, and I just explored this little cave, killed a bunch of enemies in it, and I was like, that's so cool. And I found a few other little things, like this giant landmark with a giant sword in it. It was very cool. So a lot of exploration and things to find in there. There's buried treasure. I saw at least in front of the little bell landmark, for those who know, the tree thing with the bell in it. That is a little hidden treasure like right over there somewhere, so you can go find that if you want. But that's very good, and I really enjoyed it. So the Highlands, definitely a big plus for me, and I will see about the Reaper Woods when I get there. I've heard mixed reviews about it, about, you know, some people like it, some people don't, but I'll see when I get there. But as for the Highlands and Skylight so far, the world itself is very nice. We've covered a lot of good so far, but it must come to an end after this. Characters and the ecosystem. Now, when it comes to characters, I actually can't speak much on characters as I've only unlocked Wingrave. I've only played Wingrave, so I can only speak on him. And I have to say that Wingrave is great. He's a great character. Honestly, in my opinion, so far of the 3 Wayfinders that I've seen that you can choose from at the beginning, I think Wingrave is the best. This man is tanky, you can do damage of course, and this man can heal. All 3 of his 4 abilities heal you, while the one that doesn't heal you just gives you a giant shield that will block any projectiles coming at you and raise the defense of any of the teammates behind that shield, which is very good. This character can do everything, and I picked him just because I thought he'd be a great solo character, and so far I'm honestly not disappointed in him. As you know, your square, which is a giant cleave, that heals you a good bit. You know, your taunt, it marks enemies, and if your teammates hit the enemies, they heal. If you hit the enemies, you heal. It's very good for healing. And then of course your ultimate is kind of like the Paladin's Hollow Ground from Final Fantasy XIV, where it drops, you know, like a healing circle where you're kind of impervious to damage and you heal in it, which is very nice, I will say. So it's been an absolute joy playing Wingrave, and I'll definitely cover some other Wayfinders whenever I do my final impressions later on, whenever I have more unlocked, whenever I have the ability to farm them out and then actually, you know, get to play them and really see how I feel about them. I'll get to go way more in depth about them then. We're left now with the ecosystem. Honestly, the first day that I played, I didn't even know how to access the ecosystem. I don't know if they tell you how to do it in the tutorial, because I skipped it. I'll be honest with you, I skipped it. Anytime they try to show me the tutorial in a menu or something like that, I'll just hit close and not go into it. So maybe it showed in there. But anyway, the ecosystem is actually pretty neat. I like it. It reminds me of another system in another game that I don't remember right now. Maybe I'm thinking of Warframe, I'm not too sure. But echoes are basically these little shards that have a chance of dropping from enemies that you kill, and the rarities can be common, uncommon, rare, and legendary. So white, green, blue, and purple. I've not gotten above purple, so I don't know if there's another tier of echoes after that, but I've gotten up to, I guess, what I would call legendary on the echoes so far. Now these echoes, they give you certain stats depending on which enemy they drop from it. Like if it strikes or something like that, it may give you, for example, maybe, you know, weapon power, crit power, or something like that. Whilst if you kill a goblin, maybe it'll give you magical defense or resilience. And of course, depending on the rarity of said echo, rarity level of said echo, it will determine the stats on it. So if it's legendary, it's definitely going to be way better than a common echo that you may get at the same exact level. So you definitely want to try to farm for the highest echoes, the highest rarity echoes that you can actually, you know, get your hands on. Now you can't just willy-nilly equip these echoes. I mean, you kind of can, but you kind of can't, because you have a cost, which will be located at the top of, you know, that category. It will show you, it'll be like a number, like 28 out of like 28 or something like that, and that'll be the amount of cost that you have, which of course raises with levels. At least that I know of, only levels. It could be something else as well, but for me it's been levels so far. So each echo has a cost, and I think the higher the tier goes of it, the higher the cost will be on it. So you may have an echo that's, you know, legendary and maybe a 20 cost or something like that, or it may be much higher. And I think it also depends on the rarity of said echo, because some rare echoes actually have rarity on them, whether it be 1 star or maybe 6 star or something like that. These echoes actually play a really big part of into the game. It plays well into the game. It really allows you, it allows for a lot of diversity. It allows for a lot of diversity when it comes to your builds. It can really shape up kind of how you play, because you want to have way more DPS than just go with nothing but break power, weapon power, crit rate, crit power echoes, or you want to be tankier. You want to go with, you know, resilience, magical defense. You want some more. You want to do more damage to your abilities. You want to go ability power. You want more max health to get more max health. You see what I'm getting at? There's a lot of versatility that the echoes bring to your kit, to your character, that actually make them really worth grinding. And I feel like you'll spend a lot of your time grinding, if not the most time grinding out for perfect echoes. And You may be thinking, okay, so with all of these echoes that we need to be farming out, if we want the best echoes, how are we gonna put them all on? They all cost a ton. Well, in these slots of your weapons and your characters and your accessories, things like that, you'll notice there's like a little icon, and these echoes also have, you know, icons on them. If you match the type of echo in the slot, the cost I think is cut in half, or it's cut down by a good bit, which is actually pretty cool. But I will get more into echoes on another video I want to make regarding the echo system, because actually it's really cool. But I definitely love the echoes in this game. With the goods out of the way, I now move on to my personal gripes, the bad. I will exclude the server issues and things that the game has been having, because that's been stuff that's not dealing with the game itself. That's been, you know, stuff outside the game, you know, dealing with the server stability and things like that. That's all been outside the game. You know, the Wayfinder memes and all that. That's all. That's all outside. So I'm gonna start with the good, with our first good, the combat. This will be my first bad. Funny enough, the first good, first bad. Now, I really enjoyed the combat of this game. I think that it's very nice, but I also find it to be very shallow. Now, this isn't necessarily terrible, and I'll have to play more to actually be able to see how it feels later on once, you know, I've gotten settled in, I've put in, you know, 100 hours, maybe more hours. Because there have been times, and I've played other games, where the combat's been very simple, but it works for what it is. It works in the game, in that setting. There's normally something that kind of makes up for it. But here in Wayfinder, so far, I'm still early in the game, so I can't say it, but there doesn't seem to be much that kind of makes up for it. You have like your 4 attack streams with the heavy weapon, so you have your 4 attacks and your heavy chain before it resets, which, interesting enough, you actually can cancel that if you do a dash and then do a dash light or a dash heavy. It kind of resets the chain. Or if anyone who plays Final Fantasy, it's kind of like an OG city in the way, and then you kind of go back into your next chain after that. So you can kind of infinitely do that. But other than that, that's pretty much it for the combat. It's very, very, very simple. And I don't know if in the future or later on in the game there's going to be something that ties into that may make it a little bit more interesting. Or maybe if I play different Wayfinders other than Windgrave, maybe there's other Wayfinders that, you know, manage to use their abilities to enhance the combat a little bit more to make it feel, you know, more satisfying, almost in a way like Final Fantasy does a little bit, or WoW does, or any other MMO that I've, you know, played. But so far it feels very shallow to me, and that's not even necessarily a bad, but it's also but I also don't see it as like a really as a good, if that makes any sense. So I'm kind of on the fence about it. I have things that I like about it, and then there's things that I don't like about it. Now, as a final gripe of mine, which is funny enough, I don't have too many gripes. The game's been very good for me, but a final gripe, which is a personal gripe, and it's not even necessarily bad, it's just something I personally dislike a little bit, is that at the beginning of the game, you're very limited. You're very, very limited on, you know, what you can play, what you can use. And I mean, and that's understandable, being that it's going to be released as a free-to-play game, so they're probably going to want to monetize that in some type of way, or make you have to grind, you know, or grind the normal way for it. But I feel like at the beginning there should be like a little bit more diversity, as you have Windgrave, you have Nis, and then you have the other person that I can't remember the name of right off the top of my head. And one uses daggers, one uses a gun, and the other uses sword and shield, and that's it. So there's people, there's those like me who enjoy great swords, and very giant, very heavy weapons, and it's like, well, I can't really get one right away. I have to grind a little bit to get 4.5 to 5,000 gold to then go to Arsenal and then buy, you know, a great axe, and have to level that thing up from 0, which is fine. But I think it'll be very nice if you could just start off with a weapon that you like, kind of at the start of the game. Not like, I'm not saying like, you know, offer Titan's Bane or something like that, but, you know, just a standard, you know, Claymore, you know, or standard like garden hoe as a scythe or something like that for the Kairos players. You know, just something, just like a very simple version of the weapon that they offer at the beginning to give you more versatility. Since any character can use any weapon, then you should maybe offer, you know, all the weapon types right off the bat, or at least make them easily acquirable as you can from Arsenal with the great axe. You can, you know, spend 5k and get a great axe from there. But that's just a personal gripe of mine. But other than that, honestly, I really enjoyed the game so far. It's been great. Now, with Wayfinder being in early access, it just came out 2 weeks ago, or almost 2 weeks ago. It's going to be in early access for the next 6 months, and that's when the game's going to officially release. So until then, the game's going to be $20 to get in. Once it officially comes out, it's going to be free to play. So do I think you should pay $20 to get in? Well, it's $20 minimum. Do I think that you should pay that to get in? Honestly, I'll leave that to you. For me, it's been worth it to spend that and get in here and have a great time. I feel like I've already got my $20 worth, and I haven't even played that much of the game. It's been absolutely fantastic for me to play, and I've really gotten immersed into this game and its different systems, and I love how grindy it is. And I do enjoy those games where I can just go in and grind endlessly with a good Spotify playlist on or something like that. And it's not repetitive. It's not as repetitive, at least. Just because every dungeon run, no dungeon run's the same. Every dungeon run's going to be different. The rooms are in a different order. There may be a new secret here or there, a different puzzle here or there. It's actually very, very interesting. I think that's the real big selling point of the game, is just the dungeons and how they're randomly generated, the modifiers you can add to them to make it more interesting, the difficulties of the dungeons to make them harder. All those things play together and make it amazing. I think that's the real selling point of the game. There is just the dungeons there, and then how your character interacts with the world. So do I think they should pay? Like I said, completely up to you. Completely up to you. I'll leave that completely up to you guys. But I will say that I've got my $20 worth already, and people do say that it gets a little dry later on in the game. But I'll definitely come back and make a final part to see, just to basically see if I agree or don't agree. But even if that is the case, where the game might be dry at the end, I mean, it's fine. It's on early access, and when it comes out in 6 months, we're going to be getting a season then, new Wayfinder, new content, and they're going to be doing a new season every 6 months. That's going to be dropping a new Wayfinder. Going to, of course, be pumping in new content. So I'm honestly excited to see, what it becomes of this game. I think it actually has a lot of potential, and if if we go back in time and we go to a different timeline entirely, where they didn't have any server issues at all or anything like that, I think this game would be blowing up and it'll be having a very, very great time. Which, I mean, I think it's still doing pretty decent even after all the issues. The game has a ton of potential, and I'm definitely want to stick around to see if it fulfills that potential. So I'll definitely be keeping my eye in playing this game. And maybe you guys will as well. I think that you guys should give it a try. If you have the $20 to spare, I think you should go ahead and give it a try. If you like grinding, you like some cool weapons, you like cool armor, cool characters with cool abilities, I think you should go ahead and give it a shot. But hey, that's just my opinion. But that's gonna be it for me today, guys. I just want to do a quick little spill on my first thoughts, initial thoughts playing the game. Now that I've gotten probably around 10-12 hours in. If you guys like this kind of content, if you guys enjoyed it, leave a like, let me know, because I'm definitely eager to make some more Wayfinder content. I already have some other ideas in mind, especially with the ecosystem. that's a whole video in itself that's going to be coming. But if you guys are looking forward to that, I will say go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss it whenever I make it at some point during this week. But I'll stop taking up your time, guys. Thank you for tuning in. And let me know what you guys think about Wayfinder, if you're playing it, who you're playing, if you're having a great time, what's been your favorite parts of the game, what have you disliked the most, and I'll look forward to reading it. But for now, I'm gonna let you guys go. You guys have a great night, morning, whatever time it is when you're watching this. I'll see you next time. Peace. I am out.